The glass carafe shattered across the marble floor of the conference room, and Lena Carter found herself sprawled across the lap of the most dangerous man in New York, Adrian Moretti, the Mafia Boss whose name made grown men tremble. His hands locked around her waist like a vice, and when she tried to stand, his voice cut through the silence. "Don't you dare leave!" In that moment, what should have been a humiliating accident became something far more dangerous. What happened next would pull her into a world of power, passion, and deadly consequences she never saw coming. If you're ready to discover how one woman's life changed forever in the arms of a ruthless crime lord, stay with me until the end. And don't forget to hit that like button and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. 6 months. That was how long Lena Carter had managed to remain invisible. 6 months of arriving at the sleek Manhattan office building at exactly 8:47 a.m., brewing coffee that was always precisely 185 degrees, organizing files that documented transactions she pretended not to understand, and leaving at 6:15 p.m. without making eye contact with anyone who mattered. 6 months of perfecting the art of being professionally invisible in the heart of Adrian Moretti's criminal empire. The 43rd floor of the Moretti Tower housed what the world believed to be a legitimate import-export business. The floor below held corporate lawyers who specialized in making problems disappear. The floor above, the one Lena had only visited twice, both times with her eyes carefully lowered, was where Adrian Moretti himself worked, surrounded by men whose expensive suits couldn't quite hide the violence in their eyes. Lena had learned the rules quickly when she'd started working there, desperate for any job that paid enough to cover her mother's mounting medical bills. Keep your head down. Answer questions with yes, sir, or no, sir. Never ask about the locked rooms, never comment on the men who arrived bleeding and left bandaged. Never, ever look Adrian Moretti directly in the eyes. She had followed those rules religiously. Until the afternoon, everything changed. "Carter, conference room 3, now." Lena's head snapped up from her desk at the sharp command. Marcus Webb, Adrian's head of security, stood in the doorway of the secretarial pool. He was a mountain of a man, 6'5", with shoulders that barely fit through door frames, and a scar that ran from his left eyebrow to his jaw. "Yes, sir." Lena stood immediately, smoothing down her conservative navy skirt. "What do you need?" "Strategy meeting, 12 people, coffee service." Marcus's eyes swept over her with the same calculating assessment he probably used on potential threats. "The regular girl called in sick. You're up." Lena's stomach dropped. Strategy meetings meant the inner circle, the men who actually ran the organization, and Adrian himself. I've never served a strategy meeting before," she said carefully. "You pour coffee and keep your mouth shut. Think you can handle that?" The question wasn't really a question. "Yes, sir." "Good. 5 minutes. Don't be late." Marcus disappeared, and Lena's hands started trembling immediately. She grabbed her phone, typing a quick message to her best friend Sarah. "Serving Adrian's inner circle meeting. If I don't text you by 3 p.m., I probably said something stupid and got fired. Or worse." Sarah's response came instantly. "Don't make eye contact. And for the love of everything, don't spill anything on the sexy, terrifying Mafia Boss." Lena almost laughed, but the sound caught in her throat. She'd seen Adrian Moretti exactly 11 times in 6 months. Each encounter had lasted less than 30 seconds. Him passing through the office, her pressing herself against the wall to stay out of his way. But even those brief moments had imprinted themselves on her memory with uncomfortable clarity. Adrian Moretti wasn't handsome in a conventional way. His face was too sharp, too severe, with a jawline that looked carved from granite and eyes so dark they appeared black. A thin scar cut through his left eyebrow, and another traced his collarbone. She'd glimpsed it once when his shirt collar shifted. He moved like a predator, all controlled power and casual menace. And he terrified her. Not because he'd ever spoken harshly to her. He'd barely acknowledged her existence. But because everything about him radiated danger, the way other men deferred to him, the way conversations stopped when he entered a room, the way even Marcus, who feared nothing, spoke his name with careful respect. "Pull it together," Lena muttered to herself, grabbing the coffee supplies. "Pour coffee, don't make eye contact, don't trip, don't die." She loaded the rolling cart with the specific setup Marcus had outlined: Italian espresso, French press coffee, cream, sugar, and the particular brand of sparkling water Adrian preferred. Her hands shook slightly as she arranged the cups, fine porcelain, not the regular office mugs, and grabbed the insulated carafe. Conference room 3 was on the executive floor. Lena had to badge through 2 security checkpoints to reach it, and each guard examined her with the thoroughness usually reserved for bomb threats. "You're cleared," the second guard finally said, opening the heavy door. "They're already inside." The conference room was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan, offering a view that probably cost more than Lena's entire year's salary. The table was black marble, polished to a mirror shine, and surrounded by leather chairs that looked more comfortable than her bed. 12 men sat around that table. And at the head, reading through a document with complete focus, sat Adrian Moretti. He wore a charcoal suit that had definitely been custom-tailored, the jacket emphasizing the breadth of his shoulders. His dark hair was slightly longer than traditional business style, curling just above his collar. As Lena entered, pushing the cart, he didn't look up. No one did. The meeting was already in progress. A man with silver hair, Vincent Romano, Adrian's consigliere, was discussing something about shipping routes and customs inspections. Lena recognized the coded language from months of typing similar reports. They weren't talking about legal cargo. "The Baltimore port is compromised," Vincent said, his voice carrying the faint trace of a Brooklyn accent. "We lost 2 containers last week. The feds are watching." "Then we reroute through Philadelphia," another man countered. "The dock supervisor there owes us." "Philadelphia's got its own problems. The Luciano family. The Lucianos know better than to interfere with our operations." This voice was different. Cold. Absolute. Adrian had spoken. Lena's hands tightened on the coffee cart handle. She began moving around the table, filling cups with the smooth efficiency she'd perfected during her brief stint as a waitress in college. The men barely glanced at her, too focused on their boss. "They've been expanding into Port Newark," Vincent said carefully. "Antonio Luciano thinks—" "I don't care what Antonio Luciano thinks." Adrian's voice remained level, but something in it made the temperature in the room drop several degrees. "We established those territories 15 years ago. If Antonio wants to renegotiate, he can schedule an appointment like everyone else. He doesn't get to encroach and then claim ignorance." Lena moved closer, filling cups. "Don't shake, don't spill, don't breathe too loudly." "He's testing you," Marcus said from his position near the door. "Seeing if you'll respond." "Then I'll respond." Adrian finally looked up from his papers, and Lena caught a glimpse of his profile. "Schedule a meeting. Public place. I'll remind Antonio why we don't have these territorial disputes." The way he said "remind" made it clear the reminder wouldn't be gentle. Lena reached Adrian's position at the head of the table. This was the moment she'd been dreading. She lifted the heavy glass carafe, angling it carefully over his cup. And that's when she felt it. The marble tile beneath her right foot shifted. Just a fraction, just enough. Later she would remember thinking, "This is how I die," spilling coffee on a mafia boss. Her ankle twisted. The carafe slipped from her grip. And Lena Carter, who had spent 6 months being invisible, suddenly became the center of attention in the most horrifying way possible. She fell forward. The glass carafe shattered against the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot. Hot coffee splashed across expensive Italian leather. And Lena found herself sprawled directly across Adrian Moretti's lap, her hands braced against his chest, her face inches from his. Time stopped. Every man in the room froze. Lena could feel 12 pairs of eyes on her, could sense the collective held breath, the anticipation of violence. She scrambled to push herself up, mortification burning through her. "I'm so sorry, Adrian's hands locked around her waist, firm, possessive, completely unexpected. Lena froze, her breath catching. This close, she could see that his eyes weren't pure black. They were the deepest brown imaginable, with flecks of amber near the pupils. This close, she could smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that made her head spin. "Don't you dare leave," he said, his voice low and commanding, meant only for her. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. She was acutely aware of every point of contact between them, his hands on her waist, her palms pressed against the hard plane of his chest, the way his thigh muscles had tensed beneath her weight. I need to clean up the mess," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. "The mess can wait." Something in his tone made it clear he wasn't talking about the coffee. The moment stretched, electric and impossible. Lena could feel the confusion radiating from the other men in the room, could sense Marcus's hand moving toward his weapon, probably assuming she was some kind of threat. Then Adrian's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. It was more dangerous than that, more predatory. "What's your name?" he asked, though she was certain he already knew. "Lena Carter, sir." "How long have you worked here, Lena Carter?" "6 months, sir." His thumbs moved slightly against her waist, the gesture so subtle she almost missed it. Almost. "6 months," Adrian repeated, his voice carrying an edge of something Lena couldn't identify. "And in those 6 months, have you always been this clumsy?" It wasn't really a question about clumsiness. "No, sir. I apologize. It won't happen again." "Won't it?" The intensity of his gaze should have terrified her. Instead, Lena felt something else entirely, a heat that started where his hands gripped her waist and spread through her entire body. "Let her up, boss," Marcus said from across the room, his voice tight with barely controlled tension. "She's just scared." Adrian's eyes never left Lena's face. "Are you scared, Lena?" She should lie. She should say yes and use his reputation as an excuse for her racing heart. Instead, she heard herself say, "I don't know what I am right now." The truth surprised both of them. For 3 seconds, Lena counted, Adrian Moretti's carefully controlled expression cracked, revealing something raw beneath it. Interest, curiosity, and something darker that made her breath catch. Then the mask slammed back into place. He released her waist, his hands dropping away. "Clean up the mess," he said. His voice returned to its usual cold authority. "Marcus, get her a new carafe. Gentlemen, we'll take a 15-minute break." Lena scrambled to her feet, her face burning. The other men were already standing, filing out of the conference room with the discipline of soldiers. Only Marcus remained, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "You okay?" he asked, surprisingly gentle. "I think so." Lena knelt down, starting to gather the larger pieces of shattered glass. Her hands were shaking badly now, adrenaline flooding her system. "Is he going to fire me?" "Fire you?" Marcus let out a low chuckle. "Sweetheart, firing you is the last thing on his mind right now." Before Lena could ask what that meant, Marcus left to get cleaning supplies. She was alone in the conference room, surrounded by broken glass and spilled coffee, trying to process what had just happened. Adrian's hands on her waist, the way he'd looked at her, the electric current that had passed between them. "Don't you dare leave!" The words echoed in her mind, heavy with implications she didn't want to examine. Lena had spent 6 months being invisible. 6 months following the rules. 6 months staying safe. And she'd destroyed all of that in approximately 45 seconds. She was still cleaning when Marcus returned with a mop and bucket. He helped her finish, his movements efficient and practiced. "Word of advice," he said as they worked. "Whatever just happened in here, it's going to have consequences." Lena's stomach twisted. "What kind of consequences?" Marcus studied her for a long moment. "The kind you can't prepare for. Adrian Moretti doesn't do anything halfway. If he's interested in you, and sweetheart, he's definitely interested, your quiet life just ended." "I don't want his interest," Lena said quickly. "I just want to do my job and go home." "Too late for that." Marcus hauled the broken glass into a disposal bag. "You've been noticed. In this world, that changes everything." Before Lena could respond, the conference room door opened. Adrian stood in the doorway, alone. He'd removed his jacket, and his white shirt was rolled up at the sleeves, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars that told stories Lena probably didn't want to know. "Marcus, give us the room," Adrian said. It wasn't a request. Marcus shot Lena a look that might have been sympathy or warning, possibly both, and left. The door closed with a soft click that sounded impossibly loud. Lena stood, very aware that she was holding a mop and probably looked ridiculous. Adrian crossed to the windows, his back to her, hands in his pockets, as he stared out at the Manhattan skyline. "Do you know what I do, Lena?" he asked after a long silence. "You run an import-export business, sir." "Don't insult both of us with polite lies." He turned to face her, and the late afternoon sun streaming through the windows cast his face in sharp relief. You've worked here 6 months. You're not stupid. You know exactly what I do. Lena set down the mop carefully. You run the Moretti organization. You control most of the port shipping on the East Coast. You have politicians and judges in your pocket. People fear you. And yet you're not running. Where would I run to? Lena met his eyes, feeling reckless. You own half of New York, and I need this job. My mother has stage 4 cancer. The medical bills. She cut herself off. He didn't need her sob story, but something shifted in Adrian's expression, something almost like understanding. How old are you? He asked. 26? And you've been taking care of your mother alone? Since I was 19. My father... Lena hesitated. He left when she got sick, decided it was too much trouble. Adrian's jaw tightened. Coward. The single word delivered with such contempt surprised her. He moved closer, and Lena fought the urge to step back. He stopped about 3 feet away, close enough that she could see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, far enough that he wasn't crowding her. I'm going to be honest with you, Adrian said, his voice quieter now, because I think you deserve honesty more than pretty lies. Lena's heart rate picked up again. Okay. When you fell into my lap today, something changed. I felt it, and I know you felt it too. Don't try to deny it. I watched your pupils dilate, felt your pulse racing under my hands. Heat flooded Lena's cheeks, but she didn't look away. For 6 months, Adrian continued, you've been the only woman in this building who never looked at me like I was either a monster or a trophy to be won. You just existed. Professionally, politely, completely uninterested. I was terrified of you, Lena admitted. Were? He caught the past tense. And now? Now I don't know what I am. The same answer she'd given before. The same truth. Adrian took one more step closer. I want to have dinner with you. Tonight. Somewhere private where we can talk without an audience. Every rational part of Lena's brain screamed at her to refuse. This man was dangerous. He was her boss. He lived in a world of violence and crime. Getting involved with him would be the worst decision she could possibly make. Why? She heard herself ask instead. Because in 15 years of running this organization, I have never met anyone who intrigued me the way you do. And I've learned that when something rare appears in my life, I don't ignore it. I'm not rare. I'm a secretary with student loans and a dying mother and absolutely nothing special about me. You're wrong. Adrian's voice dropped even lower, intimate and certain. You're the woman who fell into my arms and didn't flinch when I held on. You're the woman who looks me in the eyes and tells me the truth. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world? Your world is terrifying. Yes, he agreed simply. It is, which is why I'm giving you a choice. Have dinner with me tonight. Let me show you that I'm more than what you've heard, or walk away right now and we'll pretend this conversation never happened. I won't fire you. I won't make your life difficult. You can go back to being invisible. Lena stared at him, her mind racing. The smart choice was obvious. Thank him politely and leave. Protect herself. Protect her mother. Stay safe. But something in her, some reckless, desperate part that had been buried under years of caution and responsibility, whispered a different answer. What time? She asked. Adrian's expression transformed. The cold, dangerous mafia boss disappeared, replaced by something warmer, something almost vulnerable. 7 o'clock, I'll pick you up. You don't know where I live. His lips curved. Lena, I've known where you live since the day I hired you. I know you live in a 4th-floor walk-up in Brooklyn. I know you take the Q train to work every morning. I know you order the same coffee, medium vanilla latte with oat milk, from the cafe on the corner 3 times a week. The revelation should have frightened her. Instead, Lena felt that dangerous heat spreading through her again. Have you been watching me? Since day one, Adrian admitted without shame. The woman who never looked at me, who never tried to flirt or manipulate or use her position for advantage. You fascinated me. So yes, I watched. And the more I watched, the more I wanted to know. That's incredibly creepy. Yes, he agreed again. It is. I won't apologize for it. This is who I am, Lena. I see something I want, I learn everything about it. Then I decide if it's worth pursuing. And am I? Worth pursuing? Adrian stepped close enough now that Lena could feel the warmth radiating from his body. Close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. You're the first thing in a very long time that's made me feel like something other than a monster, he said quietly. So yes, you're worth pursuing. Before Lena could respond, he reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was surprisingly tender coming from a man who probably ordered executions with the same casual ease. 7 o'clock, he repeated. Wear something comfortable. I'm not taking you anywhere you'll need to impress anyone but me. Then he walked away, leaving Lena standing in the conference room, her life irrevocably changed by a single moment of clumsiness. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Lena returned to her desk, fielded questions from curious coworkers about what had happened in the conference room, and tried desperately to focus on work while her mind spun in circles. She was having dinner with Adrian Moretti. The Adrian Moretti. The man whose name appeared in FBI files and tabloid headlines with equal frequency. The man who controlled enough power to make or break entire industries. The man who, according to office gossip, once had a rival crime boss's car compacted with the boss still inside it. And yet when he'd touched her waist, Lena hadn't felt fear. When he'd looked at her with those impossibly dark eyes, she hadn't wanted to run, she'd wanted to stay. At 5:45, Lena's phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Adrian. I'm sending a car for you at 6:30. It will wait outside your building. Don't pack a bag. You're coming home tonight. Lena's hands froze on her keyboard. The presumption should have angered her. Instead, her pulse quickened. She typed back, "That's pretty confident of you." His response came immediately. "I'm always confident. It's one of my worst qualities." "See you soon, Lena." Or so. The Blacktown car arrived at exactly 6:30, as promised. The driver was professional and silent, delivering Lena to an address in Tribeca that made her eyebrows rise. The building was all glass and steel, probably worth more than she'd earn in 3 lifetimes. A private elevator took her to the penthouse. When the doors opened, Adrian was waiting. He'd changed into dark jeans and a black Henley that somehow made him look even more dangerous than the business suit. More real. More human. "You came," he said, something like relief in his voice. "I said I would." People say a lot of things they don't mean. Adrian stepped aside, gesturing her into the penthouse, especially when they're afraid. The space was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Manhattan, the city lights beginning to twinkle as dusk fell. The decor was minimalist but expensive, all clean lines and carefully curated art. "Are you afraid?" Lena asked, turning to face him. "Of you?" Terrified. The admission caught her off guard. "I'm a secretary. What could I possibly do to terrify you?" Adrian moved to a bar cart, pouring 2 glasses of wine. He handed her one, their fingers brushing in the exchange. "You make me want things I told myself I could never have," he said simply. "That's the most dangerous thing anyone's done to me in years." They stood there, wine glasses in hand, as the last sunlight painted Manhattan gold and crimson. And Lena Carter realized that falling into Adrian Moretti's lap might have been the least accidental thing that had ever happened to her. The real fall was just beginning. The wine was exceptional, rich and complex, probably worth more than Lena's monthly rent. She took a small sip, hyper-aware of Adrian watching her every movement with those dark, penetrating eyes. "You're nervous," he observed, setting his own glass down on the marble countertop. "Wouldn't you be?" Lena countered. "I'm in a penthouse with a man who could make me disappear with a phone call." "I could," Adrian agreed, moving closer. "But I won't. You're safe with me, Lena. I need you to believe that." "Safe is a relative term in your world." "True." He gestured toward the massive windows. "Come here. I want to show you something." Lena followed him to the glass wall overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. Manhattan sprawled below them like a circuit board of light and life, the Hudson River reflecting the sunset in shades of copper and gold. "This is my kingdom," Adrian said quietly, standing beside her. "Every building you see, every street, every corner, I have influence there. Protection rackets, construction permits, union contracts, shipping routes. The Moretti name touches all of it." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because if we're going to do this, whatever this is, You need to understand what you're stepping into. He turned to face her fully. I don't do halfway, Lena. I don't do casual. If I pursue you, it will be completely, obsessively, in a way that will change your entire life. Lena's breath caught. That should terrify me. Should it? Yes, I should run out of here and never look back. But you won't. It wasn't a question. Adrian said it with absolute certainty, and the infuriating part was that he was right. How do you know? Lena challenged. Because you're still here. Because when I touched your waist this afternoon, you didn't pull away, you leaned in. Because right now your pulse is racing, but not from fear. His hand came up to her throat, fingers resting gently against the point where her heartbeat thundered beneath her skin. From this, the touch was electric. Lena's eyes fluttered closed for just a second before she forced them open again. This is insane, she whispered. Completely. Adrian's thumb traced a slow circle against her pulse point. I've built my entire empire on calculated risks and careful control. Nothing I do is impulsive, and yet here you are, the most reckless thing I've ever wanted. Why me? You could have anyone. Women who understand your world, who come from families like yours, women who want my power, my money, my name. Adrian's voice hardened. Women who see me as a prize to be won or a monster to be tamed. You looked at me today like I was just a man. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Lena's hand came up, covering his where it still rested against her throat. You're just a man, Adrian. A complicated, dangerous, powerful man, but still just a man. Something raw flashed across his face. My mother used to say that, before she died. Before this life consumed everything, she'd tell my father, "You're still just a man, Antonio. Don't forget that." He paused, pain evident in his eyes. He forgot anyway. The power ate him alive until there was nothing left but the reputation. Is that what you're afraid of? Becoming like him? I became like him years ago. Adrian dropped his hand, stepping back. I've done things that would make you sick, Lena. Ordered executions, destroyed lives, built my empire on fear and blood. I'm not a good man pretending to be bad. I'm a bad man who occasionally remembers what good used to feel like. Lena absorbed this, studying his face, the hard lines, the scars, the weight he carried in those dark eyes. Then why are you telling me all this? If you're trying to scare me away, you're doing a terrible job. Adrian laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his entire face. Am I? Yes, because all I'm hearing is a man who's very aware of his own darkness, a man who still has enough conscience left to warn me about it. Lena took a step toward him, surprising them both. If you were truly beyond redemption, you wouldn't care whether I ran or stayed. Careful, Lena. His voice dropped to something dangerous and heated. You're making me sound almost human, aren't you? Not in any way that matters. I think you're wrong. They stood there, inches apart, the tension between them thick enough to cut. Adrian's jaw tightened and Lena could see him fighting some internal battle. I need to feed you, he said abruptly, breaking the moment. I promised dinner, not philosophical debates about my soul. The shift was jarring, but Lena recognized it for what it was. Adrian retreating from vulnerability. She let him, following as he moved toward the kitchen. The kitchen was chef quality, but clearly well used. Adrian moved around it with surprising comfort, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. You cook? Lena asked, unable to hide her surprise. Shocked that a crime lord knows his way around a kitchen? Adrian glanced at her with amusement. My mother taught me. She said a man who couldn't feed himself was helpless, and helpless men didn't survive our world. Smart woman. But the smartest. He set a cutting board on the counter, began chopping vegetables with practiced efficiency. She died when I was 16. Cancer. Lena's chest tightened. My mother has... Stage 4, I know. Adrian's knife work didn't falter. I also know that St. Vincent's Hospital has been sending collection notices, that your insurance denied her last treatment claim, that you've been working 16-hour days trying to make enough money to cover the gap. The casual knowledge should have felt invasive. Instead, Lena felt understood. The bills are impossible, she admitted, leaning against the counter. Every time we clear one, 3 more appear. The doctors say she has maybe 6 months left. I just want her to be comfortable, to not spend her last days worrying about money. Adrian set down the knife, turning to face her fully. What if I could help? Lena stiffened. No. You haven't heard what I'm offering. It doesn't matter. I'm not taking money from you, Adrian. That's not why I'm here. I know that, he said quietly, which is exactly why I'm offering. Lena, I have more money than I could spend in 5 lifetimes. Your mother's medical bills? They're a rounding error in my monthly expenses. Let me handle them. In exchange for what? Nothing. He said it so simply, so definitively, that Lena almost believed him. No strings, no expectations. I pay your mother's bills, make sure she gets the best care available, and you owe me absolutely nothing. Lena's throat tightened with emotion. Why would you do that? Because I can. Because watching you work yourself to death while your mother suffers is... He stopped, seemed to search for words. It bothers me, and I have the power to fix it. Adrian, don't answer now, he interrupted. Think about it. In the meantime, let me cook for you. He turned back to the stove, and Lena watched him work, her mind spinning. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, was offering to save her mother's life without asking for anything in return. It went against everything she thought she knew about people like him. Can I ask you something? Lena said after a few minutes of silence. Always. How did you end up here, running the Moretti organization? Adrian's hand stilled briefly on the pan before resuming their work. My father built this empire from nothing, came to New York from Sicily with $20 and a willingness to do whatever it took to survive. By the time I was born, he controlled the ports, the unions, and half the police force. And you just inherited it? Nothing about this life is just anything. Adrian's voice carried an edge. My father had enemies, lots of them. When I was 17, one of those enemies decided the best way to hurt Antonio Moretti was through his son. He plated the pasta, a simple aglio e olio that smelled incredible, and carried both dishes to the dining table. Lena followed, settling into the chair he pulled out for her. What happened? She asked gently. They grabbed me outside school. 3 men, professionals, beat me badly enough that I spent 2 weeks in the hospital. Adrian sat across from her, his expression distant. My father responded the way he always did, with overwhelming violence. He wiped out the entire organization responsible. 47 men dead in one night. Lena's fork froze halfway to her mouth. The message was clear, Adrian continued. Touch the Moretti family, and everyone you've ever cared about dies screaming. After that, no one dared target me again. But something changed. My father started training me differently. Not as his son, as his weapon. How old were you? 17. He took a bite of pasta, chewed thoughtfully. By 19, I'd killed my first man. By 21, I was running enforcement for the entire organization. And when my father died 5 years ago, heart attack, ironically peaceful, I took over everything. The casual way he discussed violence should have horrified Lena. Instead, she found herself trying to imagine a 17-year-old Adrian, beaten and broken, being molded into the man before her. Do you regret it? She asked. Which part? All of it. The violence, the life, the choices you didn't really get to make. Adrian set down his fork, studying her with those impossibly dark eyes. No one forced me to become this, Lena. I had opportunities to leave, college acceptances, a trust fund large enough to disappear and start over. I chose this life because I'm good at it, because the power feels right in my hands. He paused. But do I regret what it's cost me? Every single day. What does it cost you? Everything normal, relationships, trust, the ability to walk down a street without calculating exit routes and potential threats. His smile was bitter. The chance to meet a beautiful woman and have it just be simple. Lena's heart clenched. Nothing about this is simple. No, Adrian agreed, but maybe it could be something better. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, and Lena marveled at how surreal this was, sitting in a crime lord's penthouse, eating pasta he'd cooked himself, discussing murder and mortality like they were talking about the weather. Tell me about you, Adrian said eventually. I know the facts. Brooklyn, public school, degree in English literature from City College. But I want to know the real Lena Carter, the woman underneath the professional mask. Lena laughed softly. There's not much to tell. My life has been pretty ordinary compared to yours. I doubt that. Okay, fine. She set down her fork. I wanted to be a writer, novels specifically. I spent my entire childhood making up stories, filling notebooks with characters and worlds. Got into City College on a partial scholarship, planned to major in creative writing, and moved to some cabin in Vermont to write the next great American novel. What happened? Reality. Lena's smile faded. My mom got sick my sophomore year. The bills started piling up. I switched to a more practical major, picked up 2 jobs, and the writing just stopped. By the time I graduated, I'd forgotten how to create anything that wasn't a grocery list or a budget spreadsheet. Do you miss it? The question hit harder than Lena expected. Every day. But missing something doesn't pay medical bills. What if it could? Adrian leaned forward. What if you had the freedom to write again? No financial pressure, no time constraints, just you and your stories. That's a fantasy, Adrian. I make fantasies real for a living. It's literally what I do. Lena shook her head, but she was smiling. You're dangerous. I warned you about that. Not because of the crime lord thing, because you make impossible things sound achievable. Only impossible things worth achieving. His gaze intensified. You're worth achieving, Lena Carter. The air between them thickened again, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. Lena's pulse quickened, and she knew Adrian could see it. The way her breath caught, the slight flush creeping up her neck. We should slow down, she said, though her body was screaming the opposite. Should we? Yes. This is happening too fast. 6 hours ago, I'd barely spoken 10 words to you. Now I'm in your home, listening to you talk about paying my mother's medical bills and funding my writing career like it's nothing. It is nothing to me, Adrian said simply. Money is the easiest problem to solve. But not the only problem. Lena stood, needing distance to think clearly. You live in a world of violence. You have enemies who would use me against you. And I have a dying mother who needs me stable and safe, not tangled up with a monster? With a man whose life could get me killed. Lena's voice rose with frustration. I can't be reckless, Adrian. I don't have that luxury. Adrian stood as well, moving around the table toward her. Then let me be reckless for both of us. Let me handle the danger, the enemies, the consequences. You just be you. That's not how relationships work. It is in my world. Your world is insane. Yes, he agreed, backing her gently against the window. Completely insane. And yet here you are, not running, not scared, just angry that you want this as much as I do. Lena's back hit the cool glass, and Adrian braced his hands on either side of her head, caging her in without touching her. His face was inches from hers, his breath warm against her skin. Tell me to stop, he said quietly. Tell me this is a terrible idea and you want to leave. I'll call the car, send you home, and we'll pretend this never happened. Lena's hands came up to his chest. Whether to push him away or pull him closer, she honestly didn't know. I can't tell you that, she whispered. Why not? Because it would be a lie. Adrian's control snapped. His mouth crashed against hers, and Lena gasped at the intensity of it. This wasn't a gentle first kiss. It was desperation and hunger, and months of watching finally exploding into action. His hands came down to her waist, pulling her flesh against him, and Lena's fingers tangled in his hair, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a spinning world. The kiss deepened, became something volcanic. Adrian tasted like wine and danger, and Lena couldn't get enough. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. Still think we should slow down? Adrian's voice was rough, strained. Absolutely. Lena's fingers were still in his hair. We're being completely reckless and stupid. Completely. This is going to end badly. Probably. I should go home. You should. Neither of them moved. Adrian's thumb traced her lower lip, swollen from kissing. Stay tonight. Not for anything more than this. Just stay. I want to fall asleep knowing you're here, safe, with me. It was the vulnerability in his voice that broke her. Okay, Lena breathed. I'll stay. Something fierce and possessive flashed across Adrian's face. He kissed her again, slower this time, but no less intense. When he finally stepped back, his hands lingered on her waist. I need to make some calls, he said, Business that can't wait. Make yourself comfortable. There are guest rooms if you want space. Or, he gestured toward a hallway. My room is the master suite at the end. Choice is yours. Then he disappeared into what looked like a home office, leaving Lena alone with her racing thoughts. She explored the penthouse, still processing everything that had happened. In the span of one afternoon, her entire life had tilted sideways. She'd gone from invisible secretary to the object of Adrian Moretti's singular attention, from struggling alone to having someone offer to shoulder her burdens. It was too much, too fast, too intense. And yet Lena couldn't bring herself to leave. She found herself drawn to a bookshelf in the living room, surprised by the eclectic collection. Classic literature sat beside military strategy texts. Poetry collections nestled against books on economics and history. She pulled out a worn copy of Dante's Inferno, noting the highlighted passages and margin notes in Adrian's precise handwriting. Finding anything interesting? Lena jumped, turning to find Adrian watching her from across the room. He'd removed his Henley, now wearing just a white t-shirt that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders and the tattoos she could now see wrapping around his left arm. You annotate Dante? She asked, holding up the book. College reading that stuck with me. He moved closer. Seemed appropriate for someone who runs Hell's waiting room. You went to college? Columbia. Business degree with a minor in philosophy. Adrian's smile was self-deprecating. Surprised? Constantly? Lena set the book down. You're not at all what I expected. What did you expect? Someone crueler, more one-dimensional, a villain from a movie instead of a real person with college degrees and dead mother and a taste for Italian poetry. Adrian caught her hand, threading his fingers through hers. I can be cruel, Lena. Don't romanticize me. I've done things that would give you nightmares. I'm sure you have, but you're also standing here holding my hand like you're afraid I'll disappear. You cooked me dinner. You offered to help my mother without asking for anything in return. She squeezed his fingers. People aren't one thing or another, Adrian. They're complicated. You make me want to be less complicated, better. I can't fix you. I don't want you to. He pulled her closer. I just want you to see me, all of me, and decide if you can live with what you find. Lena's other hand came up to his face, tracing the scar through his eyebrow. What happened here? Knife fight when I was 22. The other guy looked worse. And this one. She touched the scar on his collarbone. Bullet graze. 3 years ago, Luciano family getting ambitious. You wear your history on your skin. It's a dangerous history, Lena. One that's not over. If you stay with me, you'll be part of it. You'll have guards, restrictions, people trying to use you to get to me. If I stay with you, Lena repeated, not if we have dinner again, not if we date. If I stay, you're already that certain? Yes. No hesitation. I know what I want. The question is whether you're brave enough to want it too. Lena should have been offended by the challenge. Instead, she felt something ignite in her chest, something reckless and fierce that she'd buried under years of responsibility and caution. I'm terrified, she admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Adrian's hand settled on her waist again, that possessive gesture already becoming familiar. But don't let it make you a coward. Are you calling me a coward? I'm calling you careful. There's a difference, but sometimes careful is just another word for trapped. The observation hit too close to home. Lena had been careful her entire adult life. Careful with money, with relationships, with dreams. And where had it gotten her? Drowning in debt, alone, watching her mother die while she typed reports for a criminal organization. Maybe it was time to be reckless. Show me your room, she said, surprising them both. Adrian's eyes darkened. Lena, I'm not asking for sex. I'm asking to see where you sleep, to understand more of you. She paused. Unless you're afraid. His laugh was low and dangerous. I'm not afraid of you seeing my bedroom. I'm afraid of what I'll do once you're in it. I trust you. You shouldn't. And yet I do. Adrian studied her for a long moment, something like wonder crossing his face. Then he took her hand and led her down the hallway. The master suite was enormous, but surprisingly austere. A massive bed dominated the space, flanked by floor-to-ceiling windows offering the same spectacular view. The furniture was dark wood, minimal decoration except for a single photograph on the nightstand. Lena moved closer, studying it. A beautiful woman with dark hair and Adrian's eyes, laughing at the camera while a younger version of Adrian, maybe 15, stood beside her making a face. "Your mother," Lena said softly, 2 months before the diagnosis. Adrian came up behind her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. She hated that photo, said she looked ridiculous, but it's the only one where we're both genuinely happy. Lena turned in his arms, seeing the grief he usually kept hidden. "You must miss her terribly." "Every day. She was the only person who could make my father laugh. The only one who could calm him when the violence got too close to home." His thumb traced patterns on Lena's hip. "She would have liked you." "How do you know?" "Because you're not impressed by money or power. You look at me and see a person, not a position. That's all she ever wanted for me, someone who could see past the name." Lena kissed him then, slow and tender. Adrian responded in kind, and when they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "Stay in here tonight," he said. "I'll take the couch." "That's ridiculous. This bed is huge." "Lena, if you sleep in this bed with me, I can't promise I'll keep my hands to myself." "Then don't." She watched his eyes widen slightly. "I'm not asking for everything, but I want to fall asleep next to you. I want to know what it feels like to be close to you without fear or pretense." "Can we have that?" Adrian's jaw clenched with the effort of control. "You're killing me." "Is that a yes?" "It's a, I'll try not to make you regret this." They got ready for bed in carefully maintained distance. Lena borrowing one of Adrian's t-shirts, Adrian disappearing into the bathroom and emerging in just sleep pants that hung low on his hips. The casual domesticity of it felt surreal. When they finally settled into bed, Lena on one side and Adrian on the other, the space between them felt charged with possibility. "Tell me something," Lena said into the darkness. "Something you've never told anyone else." Adrian was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then, "I'm tired of being feared. I've built my entire reputation on it, on being the man too dangerous to cross, too ruthless to challenge. And it works. It keeps me in power, keeps my people safe. But sometimes I just want someone to look at me without calculation, without wondering if I'm going to hurt them." Lena rolled toward him, finding his hand in the darkness. "I'm looking at you right now." "I know." His fingers tightened around hers. "That's what terrifies me. You don't know what you're seeing yet." "Then show me. Not the crime lord, not the reputation, just Adrian." He pulled her against him then, and Lena went willingly, tucking her head under his chin. She could feel his heartbeat against her cheek, steady and strong. "Just Adrian is a dangerous man to know," he murmured into her hair. "I'm starting to realize I like danger more than I thought." Adrian's arms tightened around her, possessive and protective in equal measure. And as Lena drifted toward sleep, safe in the embrace of the most dangerous man in New York, she couldn't bring herself to regret a single reckless decision that had led her here. Tomorrow she would worry about consequences. Tonight, she just let herself fall. Lena woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the unfamiliar weight of an arm draped across her waist. For a disorienting moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory flooded back. Adrian's penthouse, his confession, the feeling of falling asleep in his arms. She turned carefully, not wanting to wake him, and found herself face to face with Adrian Moretti in sleep. The hard edges of his face had softened, making him look younger, almost vulnerable. His dark hair was mussed, falling across his forehead, and in the morning light she could see faint scars she'd missed before. A thin line along his jaw, another disappearing into his hairline. "You're staring," Adrian murmured without opening his eyes, his voice rough with sleep. Lena's cheeks heated. "How did you know?" "I'm always aware of you." His eyes opened, and the intensity in them stole her breath. "Even in sleep, some part of me knows exactly where you are." That's incredibly creepy." He pulled her closer, his hand splaying across the small of her back. "We established that already." "I was going to say intense." "Same thing in my world." Adrian's thumb traced lazy circles against her spine through the thin fabric of his t-shirt. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in months." Lena admitted. Which is ironic, considering I'm in bed with a crime lord. Maybe that's why you slept well. No worries about paying bills or caring for your mother alone. Someone else carrying the weight for once. The observation was too accurate. Lena had spent so many years being the strong one, the responsible one, that she'd forgotten what it felt like to share the burden. I should get home, she said, though she made no move to leave. Check on my mother. Get ready for work. Call in sick. I can't just... You can. Adrian's voice carried quiet authority. I'm the boss, remember? I'm giving you the day off. Stay with me. And do what? Whatever you want. We could stay in bed all day. Order food. Talk. I could show you parts of the city most people never see. His fingers tangled gently in her hair. Or we could address the fact that you're terrified of what's happening between us, and running away feels safer. Lena pushed against his chest, creating space. I'm not running. Aren't you? I'm being practical. This, she gestured between them, is moving at light speed. Yesterday I was invisible. Today I'm waking up in your bed. That's not normal, Adrian. Nothing about my life is normal. He sat up, the sheet pooling at his waist, and Lena tried not to stare at the expanse of his chest, the tattoos that covered his left shoulder and ribs. But I meant what I said last night. I know what I want. The question is whether you're brave enough to take it. Stop challenging me like that. Why? It works. His smile was infuriatingly confident. You respond to challenges. You like when I push back. Admit it. Lena threw a pillow at him. He caught it easily, laughing, and the sound transformed his entire face. She realized she'd never heard him truly laugh before. Not the bitter chuckle or dangerous humor, but genuine amusement. There, she said softly. That's what I want to see more of. What? You, happy, not the crime lord or the calculated strategist, just Adrian enjoying a moment. His expression sobered. That man doesn't get to exist very often. Then make him exist more. Lena moved closer again. You have all this power, all this control. Use it to give yourself permission to be human. Before Adrian could respond, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. He glanced at it and his jaw tightened. I need to take this. Business. He kissed her forehead, an unexpectedly tender gesture, and left the room. Lena heard his voice in the hallway, low and commanding, discussing things she probably didn't want to understand. She took the opportunity to use the bathroom, borrowing Adrian's toothbrush because the intimacy of it felt both terrifying and thrilling. When she emerged, she found clothes laid out on the bed, designer jeans in exactly her size, a soft cashmere sweater, even undergarments still in their packaging. A note sat on top. Figured you'd want something other than yesterday's clothes. The sizes are right. I pay attention. Lena should have been disturbed by how much he knew about her. Instead, she felt cared for in a way she couldn't remember experiencing before. She dressed and found Adrian in the kitchen, coffee already brewing. He'd changed into dark jeans and a gray Henley, his hair still damp from a shower she hadn't heard him take. Coffee's almost ready, he said, not turning around. I wasn't sure how you take it. Black with 1 sugar. Lena moved to his side. The clothes fit perfectly. Thank you. I told you, I pay attention. He poured 2 cups, adding sugar to hers. Marcus is downstairs. He needs to brief me on a situation. What kind of situation? Adrian's expression darkened. The kind I handle, so you don't have to worry about it. Adrian, please. His hand cupped her face. Let me keep the ugliest parts of my world away from you as long as I can. Once you see it all, you can't unsee it. Lena wanted to argue, to insist she could handle whatever he was hiding, but the genuine concern in his eyes stopped her. Fine. But I'm not made of glass. Don't treat me like I'll shatter. You're stronger than glass. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. You're steel wrapped in softness, but that doesn't mean I want to test your breaking point. Marcus arrived 10 minutes later, his massive frame filling the doorway. His eyes widened slightly, seeing Lena in the kitchen, but he recovered quickly. Boss, Ms. Carter. He nodded at each of them. We need to talk. Give me a minute. Adrian turned to Lena. There's a library through that door. Books, comfortable chairs, a view. Make yourself at home. This won't take long. Lena recognized the dismissal for what it was. Protection. She squeezed his hand once and left them to their business. The library was stunning, 2 stories of floor-to-ceiling bookshelves connected by a spiral staircase. Lena ran her fingers along the spines, marveling at the collection. First editions of Hemingway and Fitzgerald sat beside contemporary fiction. Philosophy texts neighbored crime novels. She pulled out a worn copy of The Great Gatsby, settling into a leather chair by the window. But she couldn't focus on the words. Adrian's voice drifted from the kitchen, too low to make out details, but carrying an edge that made her stomach clench. 20 minutes later, he appeared in the doorway, tension radiating from every line of his body. "Everything okay?" Lena asked, setting the book aside. "Define okay." Adrian moved to the bar cart in the corner, pouring 2 fingers of whiskey despite the early hour. "The Luciano family is making moves, testing boundaries, being intentionally provocative. The same family you mentioned yesterday?" "Yes. Antonio Luciano thinks he can expand into our territory because he's been quiet for 5 years and assumes I've gone soft." Adrian downed the whiskey in one swallow. "He's wrong. What are you going to do?" "What I always do, send a message that's impossible to misunderstand." He set down the glass, his knuckles white from gripping it. "This is my world, Lena. Violence and territory disputes, and sending messages written in blood. Still want to stay?" Lena stood, crossing to him. She took his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. "I'm not naive, Adrian. I know what you do. I've known since the day I started working for you. Yes, it scares me. Yes, it makes me question my judgment. But you know what scares me more? Going back to my life where I'm alone and drowning and pretending everything's fine. I could get you killed. We're all dying eventually. At least with you, I'd be living first." Something fierce flashed in Adrian's eyes. He pulled her against him, his mouth crashing onto hers with barely controlled intensity. The kiss was different from last night, more desperate, more claiming. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "I need to handle this situation," he said roughly. "Which means I need to do things you shouldn't see. Not yet. Then I'll go home. Check on my mother like I should have this morning." "No." His grip on her waist tightened. "I'm sending you with a guard. Someone I trust completely." "Adrian, that's not necessary. It is now. The moment you spent the night here, you became visible. People will have noticed. My enemies will look for ways to use you." His jaw clenched. "I won't risk you, Lena. Not for anything." "You're being paranoid. I'm being realistic. This is the price of being with me." He pulled out his phone, typed quickly. "Elena Vasquez will meet you downstairs. Former Secret Service, been with me for 3 years. She'll stay with you until I know it's safe." "And when will that be?" "When Antonio Luciano understands that touching you means war." The cold certainty in his voice should have terrified her. Instead, Lena felt something warm unfurl in her chest, the knowledge that someone would go to war for her safety. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll accept the guard." Adrian's expression softened slightly. "Thank you for not fighting me on this. I'm not stupid. If you think I'm in danger, I trust your judgment." She paused. "But Adrian, don't do anything you'll regret. Don't let your need to protect me push you into choices you can't come back from." "Too late for that." He kissed her forehead. "The moment you fell into my lap, I was already past the point of no return." Elena Vasquez turned out to be a compact woman in her mid-30s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She drove Lena back to Brooklyn in a sleek black SUV, maintaining professional silence until Lena broke it. "How long have you worked for Adrian?" Lena asked. 3 years. He saved my brother's life. Long story, and I owed him. Turned out working for him paid better than government service anyway." Elena's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, constantly scanning. "You're the first woman he's ever asked me to protect. Is that significant?" "Very. Boss doesn't let people close, doesn't trust easily. The fact that you spent the night and he's assigning personal security?" Elena glanced at her. "That's as close to a declaration as Adrian Moretti gets." Lena absorbed this as they pulled up to her building. Her 4th-floor walk-up looked especially shabby after Adrian's penthouse. Elena parked illegally, clearly unconcerned. "I'll wait here," Elena said. "You've got my number if you need anything. Don't go anywhere without telling me first." "I'm just checking on my mother." "I don't care if you're going to the corner store, you tell me first. Boss's orders." Lena climbed the stairs to her apartment, fishing out her keys. Inside, she found her mother asleep on the couch, the TV playing softly. Margaret Carter looked smaller than she had a week ago, the cancer eating away at her from the inside. Lena knelt beside the couch, gently touching her mother's shoulder. "Mom?" Margaret's eyes fluttered open, and she smiled, that same warm smile that had gotten Lena through every childhood crisis. "Baby girl, I was wondering where you were. You didn't come home last night." "I stayed with a friend." The lie tasted bitter, but Lena wasn't ready to explain Adrian yet. "How are you feeling?" "Same as always, tired, sore." Margaret struggled to sit up, and Lena helped her. "But better now that you're here. Tell me about this friend. Anyone I should know about?" "Mom." "Lena Marie Carter. I may be dying, but I'm not blind. You have that look, the one women get when they've spent the night with someone special." Heat flooded Lena's cheeks. "It's complicated. The good ones always are." Margaret took her daughter's hand. "Tell me about him." So Lena did, leaving out the crime lord details, but describing Adrian's intensity, his surprising vulnerability, the way he made her feel both terrified and safe. "He sounds dangerous," Margaret said when Lena finished. "He is. But you like him anyway." "I think I might be falling for him." The admission surprised Lena. "Which is insane. I barely know him." "Sometimes the heart knows things the brain hasn't figured out yet." Margaret squeezed her hand. "Your father was dangerous too, in his own way, charming and reckless and completely wrong for me. But I loved him anyway, right up until I didn't anymore." "This is different." "How?" Lena thought about Adrian's offer to pay her mother's medical bills, his protective instincts, the way he looked at her like she was something precious. He doesn't run when things get hard. He runs toward them. "Then hold on to that," Margaret said softly. "Find someone who stays, baby. Life's too short for people who leave when it matters." They spent the afternoon together, Lena cooking soup while her mother dozed, both pretending the medical equipment in the corner wasn't a constant reminder of borrowed time. Around 4, Lena's phone buzzed. "Adrian." "How's your mother?" Lena. "Resting. We had lunch together." Adrian. "Good. I'm handling the Luciano situation tonight. Elena will stay with you until I'm done." Lena. "Be careful." Adrian. "Always. I have someone to come home to now." The words made her heart clench. She was about to respond when her mother called from the living room. "Lena, there's a man at the door." Lena's blood ran cold. She moved to the door, peering through the peephole. A stranger stood in the hallway, expensive suit, cold eyes, definitely not a neighbor. She texted Elena immediately. "Someone's at my door. Stranger? What do I do?" The response came instantly. "Don't open it. I'm coming up." Lena heard footsteps on the stairs. Then Elena's voice, sharp and commanding. "You've got 10 seconds to explain why you're here before I call the police." "I'm here with a message for Lena Carter." The man's voice was smooth, cultured. "From Mr. Luciano." Lena's stomach dropped. She cracked the door, keeping the chain on. Elena stood between her and the stranger, hand inside her jacket where Lena knew she kept a gun. "I don't know any Mr. Luciano," Lena said, keeping her voice steady. "But you know Adrian Moretti and Mr. Luciano wanted you to understand that Moretti's friends aren't as protected as Moretti might think." It was a threat, thinly veiled but unmistakable. Elena moved faster than Lena could track, slamming the man against the opposite wall, forearm across his throat. "You just made a very stupid mistake. You don't threaten what belongs to Adrian Moretti. Not if you want to keep breathing. I'm just the messenger." "Then you tell Antonio Luciano that if he comes within a mile of this woman again, there won't be enough pieces of him left to bury. Now get the hell out of here before I forget I'm supposed to be professional." The man fled, and Elena pulled out her phone, already dialing. "Boss, we have a problem." Lena listened as Elena explained the situation, her professional calm never wavering. When she hung up, her expression was grim. "Adrian's on his way. We need to get you and your mother out of here, now." "What?" "No, we can't just—" "They know where you live, Lena. They sent someone to threaten you in your own home. That means this location is compromised." Elena was already moving into the apartment, assessing exits. "Pack a bag. Essential items only. We're leaving in 5 minutes." "Mom can't travel. She's too weak." I'll arrange medical transport, but we're not staying here. Elena's eyes softened slightly. I know this is scary, but Adrian will handle this. You just need to trust him. 20 minutes later, Lena and her mother were in Elena's SUV, heading toward an address in Manhattan that Elena wouldn't specify. Margaret was confused and frightened, and Lena held her hand, murmuring reassurances she didn't quite believe. They pulled up to a luxury building in Chelsea. Elena badged them through security and led them to a penthouse apartment, not as grand as Adrian's, but clearly expensive and secure. This is a safe house, Elena explained, helping Margaret onto the couch. Medical equipment is already set up in the bedroom. Private doctor will be here within the hour to check on your mother. Adrian arranged all this? Lena asked, stunned. He started arranging it this morning, before the threat. Said if you were going to be with him, your mother needed better care than what she was getting. Elena's expression was almost sympathetic. This is what it means to be important to Adrian Moretti. He takes care of his people. A private doctor arrived exactly when Elena promised, a kind-faced woman named Dr. Rashid, who immediately began assessing Margaret. Lena hovered anxiously until the doctor assured her everything was stable. We'll make her comfortable, Dr. Rashid said gently. This apartment is equipped with everything she needs. Better equipment than most hospitals, actually. Lena was still processing this when the apartment door opened and Adrian strode in, Marcus at his heels. His eyes found her immediately, and something in his expression made her breath catch. He crossed to her in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms without a word. Lena felt the tension radiating through his body, the barely controlled violence thrumming under his skin. You're okay, he said against her hair, not quite a question. I'm fine. We both are. They came to your home. His voice was deadly quiet. They threatened you in front of your mother. Elena handled it. Elena shouldn't have had to handle it. I should have moved you both sooner. Adrian pulled back, his hands framing her face. This is my fault. I knew getting involved with you would paint a target on you, but I did it anyway because I'm selfish. Stop. Lena covered his hands with hers. I made my own choice, and I'm choosing to stay, even knowing the risk. Lena, no. You don't get to protect me from everything, Adrian. I'm an adult. I understand the danger, and I'm still choosing you. Something raw crossed his face. He kissed her then, hard and desperate, like she was the only thing keeping him anchored. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. Antonio Luciano dies tonight, he said quietly, for touching what's mine. Lena should have been horrified, should have pulled away, insisted he find another solution. Instead, she heard herself say, then make sure you come back to me. Adrian's eyes widened slightly, surprise flickering across his face. You're not going to try to stop me? Would it work? No. Then I won't waste my breath. Just promise me you'll be careful. Her fingers tightened in his shirt. I just found you, Adrian. I'm not ready to lose you yet. You won't. His conviction was absolute. I've survived this long by being smarter and more ruthless than everyone else. Antonio made a fatal mistake today. He gave me justification for something I've wanted to do anyway. Eliminating competition? Protecting what matters. He kissed her once more, gentler this time. Your mother will stay here. Medical staff around the clock. Anything she needs. Elena will coordinate security. You're doing too much. I'm doing the bare minimum to keep you safe and ease your burdens. Don't fight me on this, Lena. Let me take care of you. It's the only way I know how to show... He stopped, seeming to catch himself. Show what? Lena prompted softly. Adrian's jaw worked, some internal battle playing out behind his eyes. Finally, how much you matter. How completely you've upended everything I thought I knew about myself. It wasn't a declaration of love, but coming from a man who trusted no one, it might as well have been. I need to go, Adrian said, stepping back. Marcus and I have work to do. Stay here. Don't leave for any reason. Elena has instructions to keep you safe. How long will you be gone? As long as it takes. His thumb brushed her lower lip. But I'll come back. I promise. Lena watched him leave with Marcus, both men moving with predatory purpose. The door closed, and she was alone with Elena, her sleeping mother, and the terrible knowledge that Adrian was about to kill someone. For her, she should have felt guilty, horrified. Instead, she felt something darker, satisfaction that someone finally valued her enough to fight for her, to protect her with everything they had. "He's different with you," Elena said from across the room. Lena turned. "What?" "Adrian. I've worked for him 3 years, never seen him like this. Concerned about someone else's well-being, willing to start a war over a threat." Elena's expression was unreadable. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. He needs someone who makes him human again. I'm not trying to change him." "I know. That's why it's working." Elena checked her phone. "The operation will take a few hours. You should rest. There's nothing you can do but wait." But Lena couldn't rest. She paced the apartment, checked on her mother, stared out the windows at the Manhattan skyline. Somewhere out there, Adrian was doing terrible things, and she was complicit by accepting his protection. Hours crawled by. 10 o'clock became 11, then midnight. Lena had almost convinced herself to try sleeping when the apartment door opened. Adrian walked in, and Lena's heart stopped. Blood spattered his shirt. His knuckles were bruised and bleeding, but his eyes burned with fierce satisfaction and dark promise. "It's done," he said simply. "You're safe now." Lena should have run, should have been disgusted by the violence he wore like a second skin. Instead, she crossed to him and pulled him into her arms, holding tight, while he stood rigid with surprise. "Thank you," she whispered against his chest, "for keeping us safe." Adrian's arms came around her slowly, like he couldn't quite believe she was accepting him, blood and all. "I'd do worse for you," he said quietly. "I'd burn down the entire city if it kept you safe." And Lena believed him. More than that, she was starting to realize she'd let him. Lena led Adrian to the bathroom, her hand firm around his despite the blood staining his knuckles. He followed without resistance, which told her more about his emotional state than words could. Adrian Moretti didn't surrender control easily. "Sit," she said, gesturing to the closed toilet lid. He obeyed, watching her with those dark eyes as she gathered supplies, washcloths, antiseptic, bandages. When she knelt before him and reached for his hands, he pulled back slightly. "You don't have to do this," Adrian said quietly. "I have people who handle cleanup." "I want to." Lena caught his wrist, turning his hand palm up. The knuckles were split, bruised purple and black. "Let me take care of you for once." Something vulnerable flickered across his face before the mask slammed back into place. He let her clean the blood away, wincing only slightly when she applied antiseptic to the open cuts. "Does it hurt?" Lena asked. "I've had worse." "That's not what I asked." Adrian's lips quirked. "Yes, it hurts, but pain means I'm still alive to feel it." Lena wrapped his knuckles carefully, her fingers gentle against his damaged skin. "What happened tonight? And don't give me vague answers about handling business. You don't want to know the details. Stop deciding what I can handle." She met his eyes, her voice firm. "You killed Antonio Luciano tonight. I'm not naive enough to think it was clean or easy. But I'm choosing to be with you anyway, which means I need to understand the reality of your world." Adrian studied her for a long moment, something like respect dawning in his expression. "We tracked him to a warehouse in Queens. He was meeting with his lieutenants, planning expanded operations into our territory." He paused, his jaw tightening. "I gave him a choice, back off and live, or push forward and die. He chose wrong. He chose pride over survival, said I'd gone soft, that taking a secretary as a lover proved I was weak." Adrian's eyes darkened. "So I showed him exactly how wrong he was." Lena's hand stilled on his. "You killed him yourself." "Yes." No hesitation, no remorse. "I made it quick, cleaner than he deserved after threatening you. His organization will scatter now. Some will try to retaliate, but without leadership, they'll crumble. And the ones who try to retaliate will learn the same lesson Antonio did. You don't touch what belongs to me." The possessiveness in his tone should have bothered her. Instead, Lena felt that dangerous warmth spreading through her chest again, the knowledge that someone would go to war for her safety. "I should be horrified," she said softly. "A man died tonight because of me. A man died because he made a choice. He could have walked away, could have respected boundaries. He chose violence, and violence answered." Adrian cupped her face with his bandaged hand. "Don't carry guilt that isn't yours, Lena. I've done terrible things long before you entered my life. This is who I am." I know. She turned her face into his palm. And I'm still here. Adrian pulled her up into his lap, and Lena went willingly, straddling his thighs. His hand settled on her waist, that possessive gesture that was becoming familiar. You're the strangest woman I've ever met, he murmured against her hair. You should run screaming. Instead, you're bandaging my hands and accepting me covered in another man's blood. Maybe I'm broken too, Lena said. Maybe we're both damaged enough that this actually makes sense. Or maybe you see something in me that I stopped believing existed years ago. What's that? The possibility of being more than what I've become. His arms tightened around her. You make me want to be better, Lena. Not perfect. I'm too far gone for that. But better than I was yesterday. Lena pulled back enough to see his face. Blood still flecked his collar. Exhaustion shadowed his eyes. But underneath it all was something raw and honest that took her breath away. Then be better, she said simply. Not for me, for yourself. Because you deserve to be more than the sum of your worst choices. Adrian kissed her then, and it tasted like desperation and hope in equal measure. When they finally broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. Stay with me tonight, he said. Here, at the safe house. I need to know you're close. I'm not leaving my mother. I'm not asking you to. I'll stay here with both of you. He seemed to struggle with the words. I need you near me tonight, after everything. Please. The vulnerability in that single word broke something open in Lena's chest. Okay, we'll stay together. They checked on Margaret, who was sleeping peacefully under Dr. Rashid's care. The doctor assured them she was stable, comfortable, better medicated than she'd been in months. Lena felt tears prick her eyes at the sight of her mother finally resting without pain creasing her features. Thank you, she whispered to Adrian, for all of this. The apartment, the doctor, the equipment. You didn't have to cheat. Yes, I did. Adrian's hand found hers in the darkness of her mother's room. She's important to you. That makes her important to me. They retreated to the master bedroom, and Adrian disappeared into the shower. Lena heard the water running for a long time, longer than necessary for just getting clean. When he finally emerged, wearing only sleep pants, his hair damp and skin flushed from heat, she saw the exhaustion carved into every line of his body. Come here, Lena said, pulling back the covers. Adrian slid into bed beside her, and she immediately pulled him close, tucking his head against her shoulder, his arms wrapped around her waist, holding tight, like she was the only solid thing in a spinning world. I'm not used to this, he admitted quietly, having someone to come home to, someone who doesn't flinch from what I've done. Get used to it, Lena's fingers carded through his damp hair, because I'm not going anywhere. You say that now, but eventually you'll see too much. The violence will stop being theoretical and become visceral. You'll wake up one day and realize the man in your bed is a monster. Adrian, I'm serious, Lena. I've watched it happen before. People who think they can handle this life, who swear they understand until reality sets in and they run. His grip tightened. And when you run, it will destroy me. So maybe we should stop this now before I'm in too deep to survive it. Lena pulled back, forcing him to look at her. First of all, you're already in too deep. So am I. Second, I'm not some naive girl who thinks love conquers all. I know this will be hard. I know there will be days I question everything. But I'm also not a coward who runs at the first sign of difficulty. This isn't difficulty. This is danger. Then we'll face it together. She kissed him softly. Stop trying to push me away, Adrian. It won't work. I'm stubborn when I want something. And you want me? Terrifyingly much. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. He rolled them, pinning her beneath him, his weight pressing her into the mattress. Say it again. I want you. Lena's hands came up to frame his face. All of you. The crime lord and the man who cooks pasta. The killer and the son who misses his mother. The monster and the human underneath. I want all of it. Adrian kissed her like she was oxygen, and he was drowning. His hands mapped her body through the thin fabric of her borrowed sleep shirt, and Lena arched into his touch, wanting more, needing the connection to ground them both. We should stop, Adrian said against her mouth, though his hands contradicted his words by sliding under her shirt. You've had a traumatic day. I'm not thinking clearly. This is a terrible idea. Probably. Lena pulled him closer. Do it anyway. They made love slowly, carefully, like they had all the time in the world instead of being balanced on a knife's edge of danger. Adrian was unexpectedly tender, his touches reverent as he learned her body. And when they finally came together, Lena felt something fundamental shift between them, a claiming that went both ways. Afterward, they lay tangled together, sweat cooling on their skin, hearts gradually slowing to normal rhythms. That was, Adrian started. Inevitable, Lena finished. We've been heading here since the moment I fell into your lap. No, he traced patterns on her bare shoulder. Since the first day you started working for me. I saw you in the secretarial pool looking terrified and determined, and something in me recognized you. I just didn't know what it meant until you literally landed in my arms. You're such a romantic, Lena teased. Only with you. He kissed her shoulder. Everyone else gets the monster. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, and for the first time in years, Lena felt completely safe despite being at the center of a storm. The next morning brought reality crashing back. Lena woke to find Adrian already dressed, phone pressed to his ear, his voice sharp with authority as he coordinated something she didn't want to understand. She checked on her mother, finding Margaret awake and looking better than she had in weeks. Doctor. Rashid was adjusting her medication, and the improvement was already visible. This place is amazing, Margaret said when she saw Lena. I slept through the entire night without pain. When was the last time that happened? I don't remember. Lena sat beside her mother's bed, taking her hand. How are you feeling? Confused, grateful, worried about you. Margaret's eyes, still sharp despite the illness ravaging her body, studied her daughter. This is because of him, isn't it? Your mysterious man. Yes. He must be very powerful to arrange all this overnight. He is. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Are you in danger, Lena? The question deserved honesty. Maybe, probably, but Adrian's taking precautions. The security, this apartment, keeping us safe, it's all part of protecting us from his world. That's not what I asked. I asked if you're in danger, not if he's protecting you. Those are different things. Leave it to her mother to cut through the complexity to the core truth. Yes, Lena admitted. Being with Adrian puts me in danger, but being without him? She stopped, surprised by the certainty in her own voice. Mom, I can't explain it. I've known him less than a week, but it feels like he's been there forever. Like I was waiting for him without knowing it. That's how I felt about your father, Margaret said softly, right up until it all fell apart. Adrian's not Dad. He doesn't run when things get hard. No, he probably creates the hard things. But Margaret squeezed her daughter's hand. But I see it in your eyes, baby. You're already in love with him. Lena opened her mouth to deny it, then stopped. Was she in love with Adrian? Could you fall in love with someone in less than a week? I don't know what I feel, she said honestly. It's too big and too fast and too intense to have a name yet. Then don't name it. Just feel it. Margaret smiled. You've spent your entire adult life being responsible and careful. Maybe it's time to be reckless. You're supposed to be the voice of reason. I'm dying, Lena. I don't have time for reason anymore. I have time for truth. Margaret's grip tightened. The truth is that life is short and unpredictable. If you found someone who makes you feel alive, who sees you and wants you anyway, hold on to that. The rest is just details. Adrian appeared in the doorway, and Margaret's eyes went sharp with assessment. Lena watched her mother take in Adrian's expensive clothes, his controlled posture, the danger that radiated from him like heat. Mrs. Carter, Adrian said, moving into the room. I'm Adrian Moretti. It's an honor to finally meet you. Finally? Margaret's eyebrow rose. You've been watching my daughter, Mr. Moretti? For 6 months. No apology, no shame. She fascinated me from the moment she started working in my building. And now she's living in your safe house because your enemies threatened her. Direct, blunt. So like her mother, that Lena almost smiled. Yes, Adrian said simply. I won't insult you by pretending my world isn't dangerous. It is. But I'll protect Lena with everything I have. That's not enough, Margaret said sharply. Protection isn't the same as love, Mr. Moretti. My daughter deserves someone who loves her, not just someone who keeps her safe. Something flickered across Adrian's face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. You're right. She deserves better than what I can offer. But I'm selfish enough to want her anyway. At least you're honest. Margaret studied him for another long moment. What are your intentions toward my daughter? Mom! Lena's face heated. This isn't the 19th century. Hush, I'm allowed to ask. Margaret never took her eyes off Adrian. Well? Adrian moved to stand beside Lena, his hand settling on her shoulder. My intentions are to keep her safe, make her happy, and convince her that what we have is worth the risk. Beyond that, I'm not sure yet. But I know I want her in my life for as long as she'll stay. That's not a marriage proposal. No, it's not. Lena and I have known each other less than a week. I won't insult her intelligence by making promises I'm not sure I can keep. His thumb traced circles on Lena's shoulder. But when I do make promises, I keep them. Margaret seemed to consider this. Finally, she nodded. Fair enough. And Mr. Moretti, thank you for this. She gestured to the medical equipment, the comfortable room. Whatever your relationship with my daughter, this kindness to a dying woman won't be forgotten. You're not dying yet, Adrian said firmly. Dr. Rashid tells me the new treatment protocol could buy you months, maybe longer. Don't give up. Something passed between Adrian and Margaret. An understanding, maybe, or a shared recognition of stubbornness. Margaret smiled. I like him, she told Lena. He's dangerous and presumptuous and far too protective, but he sees you. That matters. After leaving her mother to rest, Lena found Adrian in the living room, staring out at the Manhattan skyline. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, pressing her cheek to his back. She likes you, Lena said. Your mother is dying, and I'm the reason you're in danger. She should hate me. She recognizes authenticity when she sees it. You didn't lie to her or make excuses. You owned your truth. Adrian turned in her arms, his expression troubled. I meant what I said. You deserve better than this. Better than me. Stop telling me what I deserve. I'm perfectly capable of making my own choices. Even when those choices could get you killed? Even then. Lena rose on her toes, kissing him softly. I'm not fragile, Adrian. Stop treating me like I am. Before he could respond, Marcus burst into the apartment, his expression grim. Boss, we have a problem. Adrian's entire demeanor shifted, the vulnerable man disappearing behind the crime lord. What kind of problem? Luciano's second-in-command survived last night. Carlo Benedetti. He's rallying what's left of their organization and calling for a sit-down with the other families. Let him rally. Without Antonio, they're directionless. That's just it. They're not directionless anymore. Carlo's claiming you started a war without commission approval. He's calling for a formal hearing. Lena watched Adrian's jaw tighten. The commission hasn't convened in 3 years. They're convening now, 2 days. The Platinum Club. All 5 families will be there. Marcus's voice dropped. And they're requesting you bring Lena. Absolutely not. Adrian's voice was flat, absolute. She's not entering that environment. Boss, if you refuse, it looks like you're hiding her, like she's a weakness. They'll exploit that. I don't care how it looks. What's the commission? Lena interrupted. Both men looked at her like they'd forgotten she was there. Adrian's expression was carefully blank. Nothing you need to worry about. Adrian, he sighed, the commission is an oversight body. Representatives from the 5 major crime families in New York. We meet to resolve disputes, prevent wars, maintain order. Normally, eliminating a rival requires their approval. I didn't seek it. Because he threatened me. That's not a justification they'll accept. In their eyes, you're collateral, expendable. Adrian's voice hardened. Which is why you're not going anywhere near them. But if I don't go, they'll see me as your weakness. They'll keep coming after me to get to you. Lena crossed her arms. Whereas if I show up, prove I'm not afraid, it sends a different message. You're not going, Adrian repeated. You don't get to make that choice for me. The hell I don't. This is my world, my rules, and my life. Lena's voice rose. You keep saying I'm strong enough to handle your world, but the second things get dangerous, you want to lock me away. That's not a partnership, Adrian. That's a prison. The apartment went silent. Marcus made himself very interested in his phone, clearly not wanting to be caught in this argument. Adrian moved closer, his voice dropping to something dangerous and strained. I watched my father parade my mother in front of his enemies like a trophy. Used her to prove he was human, that he had something to lose. And when they wanted to hurt him, they went after her first. She died in agony because he couldn't protect her and maintain his empire simultaneously. His hands framed her face, desperate and fierce. I will not make the same mistake with you. The pain in his voice cracked something open in Lena's chest. She covered his hands with hers, gentling her tone. Your father's mistake wasn't bringing your mother into his world. It was not preparing her for it, not giving her the tools to protect herself. She held his gaze. I'm not asking to be paraded around. I'm asking to stand beside you. There's a difference. They'll eat you alive. Then teach me to bite back. Adrian's laugh was bitter and disbelieving. You're serious. Completely. You said yourself that fear keeps people sharp. Let me be sharp. Let me learn how to survive in your world instead of just hiding from it. Marcus cleared his throat. For what it's worth, boss, she's right. Hiding her makes her a target. Bringing her to the commission, showing she's under your protection and not afraid, that's a power move. Shows you're confident enough to display your connection. Thank you, Marcus, for that unnecessary opinion, Adrian said dryly. But Lena could see him considering it, weighing the options. 2 days, he said finally. If, and this is a massive if, you come to this meeting, you follow my lead. You don't speak unless I give you permission. You stay by my side at all times, and at the first sign of real danger, you leave. No arguments. Deal. Lena extended her hand. Adrian stared at it, then at her, something like exasperated affection crossing his face. You're going to be the death of me. Probably. But what a way to go. He pulled her against him instead of shaking her hand, kissing her hard enough to bruise. When they broke apart, Marcus was grinning. I like her, boss. She's got spine. She's insane, Adrian corrected, but his arms stayed locked around Lena's waist. 2 days to prepare you for the most dangerous room you'll ever enter. This is going to be a disaster. Have a little faith, Lena said. I have faith in you. It's everyone else I don't trust. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Adrian brought in specialists to teach Lena the unspoken rules of his world. How to read power dynamics, when to speak, and when to stay silent. How to project confidence without appearing threatening. Elena worked with her on physical awareness, teaching her to scan rooms for exits, to recognize weapons, to move in a way that suggested she was protected without broadcasting weakness. And Adrian himself coached her on the players they'd encounter. Vincent Romano, his own consigliere, would be there representing the Moretti interests. Then there were the other families, the Salvatores, the DeMarcos, the Russos, and what remained of the Lucianos under Carlo Benedetti's questionable leadership. They'll test you, Adrian warned the night before the meeting. Try to provoke a reaction, make you seem unstable or weak. What kind of tests? Insults disguised as compliments, questions designed to make you reveal information, maybe even direct threats if they're feeling bold. His jaw clenched. Just remember, you're there as my partner. Whatever they say about you, they're really saying to me. And you? I'll respond accordingly. The promise in his voice was dark and absolute. That night, lying in bed together, Adrian held her tighter than usual. Last chance to change your mind, he murmured against her hair. I can still keep you away from this. I'm going. Lena laced her fingers through his. We're in this together now. Together, Adrian repeated, like he was testing the word. I'm not used to together. Get used to it. He kissed her temple, her cheek, her mouth, soft touches that felt like promises. If anything happens to you tomorrow, it won't. But if it does, I need you to know. He stopped, seeming to struggle with words he'd probably never said before. You've changed everything, Lena. In less than a week, you've made me question every choice I've made, every wall I've built. You make me want things I thought I'd given up on. Like what? A future. Partnership. Someone to come home to who sees me as more than just the Moretti Empire. His hand came up to cup her face. I don't know if what I feel is love. I'm not sure I remember what that feels like. But if it's not love, it's close enough that the distinction doesn't matter. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. Adrian, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know before we walk into that room tomorrow. Because if things go wrong, If they try to take you from me, I want you to understand why I'll burn down the entire city to get you back. Nothing's going to go wrong. Promise me something anyway. If it does, if you get a chance to run, you take it. Don't worry about me or what it means. Just save yourself. I'm not leaving you. Lena, no. She kissed him, fierce and certain. I'm not leaving you. We go in together, we come out together. That's the deal. Adrian pulled her closer, and they made love like it might be the last time, every touch weighted with meaning. And when Lena finally fell asleep in his arms, she dreamed of fire and blood, and a love too dangerous to survive but too powerful to deny. Tomorrow would bring the commission, the 5 families, a reckoning for Adrian's choice to protect her above all else. But tonight, wrapped in his arms, Lena chose to believe they'd survive it. They had to. Because she'd finally found something worth fighting for, and she'd be damned if she'd give it up without a war. The Platinum Club occupied the top floor of a nondescript building in Midtown, the kind of place tourists walked past without a second glance. But Lena knew better now. Adrian had taught her that real power didn't advertise itself with neon signs and velvet ropes. It hid in plain sight, behind unmarked doors and unassuming facades. The town car pulled up precisely at 8 p.m. Adrian sat beside her, looking every inch the dangerous crime lord in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. His hand rested possessively on her knee, thumb tracing absent patterns through the silk of her dress, a deep emerald gown that Elena had selected, elegant but not ostentatious. Last chance, Adrian said quietly, his eyes never leaving the building entrance. Stop asking me that. Lena covered his hand with hers. I'm ready. No one's ever really ready for this. But he squeezed her fingers, lifted them to his lips. Stay close. Don't react to provocations. And remember, you're here as my equal, not my accessory. They need to see that. Marcus emerged from the front passenger seat, opening their door. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of approaching rain. Adrian stepped out first, then offered Lena his hand. She took it, letting him help her from the car, and felt a dozen eyes watching from windows and shadows. They're already measuring us, Adrian murmured as they walked toward the entrance, trying to assess weakness. Then let's not give them any. 2 guards flanked the door, professionals who looked like they could break bones as easily as breathing. They nodded to Adrian with wary respect, their eyes lingering on Lena with undisguised curiosity. The elevator ride to the top floor was silent except for the soft hum of machinery. Adrian's hand never left the small of Lena's back, that possessive touch that had become his signature. She could feel the tension radiating from him, coiled violence barely held in check. The elevator doors opened onto opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across marble floors and mahogany-paneled walls. Oil paintings that were probably worth millions hung between tall windows overlooking Manhattan's glittering skyline. And in the center of the room, around a massive round table, sat the most dangerous men in New York. Vincent Romano stood immediately, his silver hair catching the light. Adrian, right on time. Vincent. Adrian's voice carried cool authority as he guided Lena into the room. Gentlemen, thank you for convening on such short notice. 4 other men sat at the table, each representing their respective families' interests. Lena recognized them from Adrian's briefings. Dominic Salvatore, old school and traditional, his weathered face carved with decades of violence. Roberto DeMarco, younger and ambitious, his expensive watch glinting as he drummed fingers against the table. Frank Russo, quiet and calculating, his eyes missing nothing. And Carlo Benedetti, Antonio Luciano's former second-in-command, barely containing his rage behind a veneer of civility. And this must be the famous Lena Carter, Dominic said, his voice carrying a hint of amusement. The woman worth starting a war over. The woman I chose to protect, Adrian corrected smoothly, pulling out a chair for Lena directly beside his own position. Gentlemen, my partner, Lena Carter. Lena, the commission. Lena sat with practiced grace, keeping her expression neutral as 5 sets of eyes assessed her with varying degrees of interest and hostility. She could feel them probing for weakness, for the scared secretary who would crumble under scrutiny. They would be disappointed. Partner, Carlo repeated, his voice dripping with contempt. Interesting choice of words, Moretti. I thought she was just your secretary. Or is that what we're calling mistresses now? Adrian's hand tightened on the back of Lena's chair, but his voice remained level. Careful, Carlo. The last man who disrespected her didn't live to regret it. Yes, let's talk about that. Carlo leaned forward, his face flushed with barely controlled anger. You murdered Antonio Luciano without commission approval. Started a war without consulting anyone at this table. All because some woman you've known less than a week fell into your lap, and you decided she was worth more than decades of established protocol. Antonio sent men to threaten Lena in her own home, Adrian said coldly. In front of her dying mother, he crossed a line and he paid the price. I don't need commission approval to protect what's mine. What's yours? Dominic interjected, his tone thoughtful. That's the heart of the issue, isn't it? We've all taken lovers, Adrian. Hell, most of us have wives. But we don't start wars over them. We don't execute fellow commission members because they sent a messenger. Antonio didn't send a messenger. He sent a threat. Adrian's voice dropped to something dangerous. And if any of you think I'll tolerate threats against Lena, you're welcome to test that theory. I guarantee you won't like the results. Roberto laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're proving Carlo's point. You've let emotion override judgment. That makes you weak, Adrian. Predictable. Does it? Lena heard herself speak, felt Adrian's surprise beside her. But she'd stayed silent long enough, letting them talk about her like she was a China doll instead of a person. You think caring about someone makes Adrian weak? I think it makes him human, which is more than I can say for men who view their own families as expendable. The room went deathly quiet. Carlo's face turned purple. You dare! He started. I dare, Lena said calmly, channeling every lesson Elena had taught her about projecting confidence. Because unlike the women you're used to, I'm not here to be decorative or silent. I'm here because Adrian asked me to stand beside him, and I chose to accept. If that threatens you, that's your weakness, not ours. Frank Russo, who hadn't spoken yet, made a sound that might have been approval. She's got spine. I like that. This isn't about liking her, Carlo snapped. This is about Moretti violating our agreements. Antonio deserved a hearing, not an execution. Antonio deserved exactly what he got. Adrian's voice was ice. And if you'd like to join him, Carlo, keep pushing. I'm in a generous mood tonight. I'll make it quick. Vincent cleared his throat, diplomatic intervention clear in his tone. Perhaps we should all take a breath. Adrian, no one here disputes your right to protect your interests, but the manner of Antonio's death, the lack of consultation, it sets a dangerous precedent. The precedent, Adrian said, his hand finding Lena's under the table, is that my family's safety is non-negotiable. I will not ask permission to eliminate threats. I will not seek approval to protect the people I care about. If that violates protocol, change the protocol. You can't just rewrite the rules, Roberto protested. Watch me. Adrian's smile was sharp and dangerous. Or did you all forget who controls the ports? Who has the politicians and judges in their pocket? Who keeps this entire ecosystem functioning smoothly? He paused, letting the words sink in. You need me more than I need you. So if the commission wants to take issue with how I protect mine, we can have that conversation. But it won't end well for anyone. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Lena watched the other men process it, saw the calculations happening behind their eyes. Adrian was right. The Moretti organization was the foundation that kept the other families operational. Challenging him meant risking their own empires. This is insane, Carlo said, but his voice had lost its conviction. You're holding us hostage over a woman. I'm establishing boundaries. Adrian's tone softened slightly. Gentlemen, I'm not unreasonable. I'll continue to honor our agreements, maintain the territories, keep the peace. But Lena, and anyone else I bring into my inner circle, is off limits, completely. That's not negotiable. Dominic studied them both for a long moment, his weathered face thoughtful. How long have you two known each other? A week, Lena answered honestly. Give or take. And you're willing to stand beside him at this table, knowing what it means? Knowing the targets it paints on your back? Yes. Why? The question was genuine, curious rather than hostile. Lena thought about all the reasons she could give. Adrian's protection, the financial security, the excitement of his world. But none of those were the real truth. Because he sees me, she said simply. Not as a secretary or a burden or someone to manage. He sees the person underneath all the roles I play, and he values her. That's rare enough to be worth fighting for. Something shifted in Dominic's expression. Recognition, maybe, or memory. My wife said something similar to me 40 years ago, right before I brought her to her first commission meeting. He turned to Adrian. She died 3 years later. Rival family sent a car bomb. I still remember what her perfume smelled like when I identified the body. The room went silent. Adrian's hand tightened around Lena's. I'm sorry, Adrian said quietly. I remember Maria. She was formidable. She was everything. Dominic's eyes were distant. And you're right to protect yours, Adrian. I should have protected mine better. Should have made it clear that touching her meant total war. He looked around the table. I vote we accept Adrian's terms. His personal life is his own business. As long as he maintains the territories and honors our agreements, what he does to protect his people is between him and his enemies. Frank nodded immediately. Agreed. This is a waste of time anyway. Antonio was an ambitious fool who overstepped. Natural selection. Roberto hesitated, then sighed. Fine. But if this starts a trend of emotional decision-making, it won't, Adrian said firmly. I'm not asking for carte blanche, just respect for clearly defined boundaries. Carlo looked like he wanted to argue, but he was outnumbered and knew it. The Luciano family demands reparations. Antonio's death leaves us vulnerable, weakened. You owe us. I owe you nothing, Adrian said flatly. Antonio chose violence, but he paused, seeming to consider, in the interest of maintaining peace, I'm willing to offer a compromise. The Luciano docks in Jersey. I'll cede them back to you. That's worth more than Antonio's life ever was. Carlo's eyes widened. Those docks represented millions in revenue. You're serious? Completely. But in exchange, you acknowledge that this matter is settled. No retaliation, no further threats against Lena or my organization. We move forward with clean slates. Carlo looked at Vincent, who nodded slightly. It's a generous offer, Carlo. More than fair. Fine, Carlo said finally. The matter is settled. Vincent stood, moving to a sideboard where crystal decanters waited. Then let's drink to continued cooperation and clearly defined boundaries. He poured whiskey into 6 glasses, passing them around the table. Adrian raised his glass. To respect, and to knowing when to push and when to walk away. To survival, Dominic added, the only thing that matters in the end. They drank, and Lena felt the tension in the room ease. It wasn't friendship. These men would never be friends. But it was understanding, a recognition of mutual interest. As the meeting continued, discussing territory disputes and revenue shares, Lena watched Adrian operate. He was brilliant in this environment, calculating yet fair, dangerous yet diplomatic. She understood now why he'd built such a successful empire. It wasn't just violence or intimidation. It was strategic thinking, knowing when to compromise and when to hold firm. 2 hours later, they left the Platinum Club, Adrian's hand firm around Lena's waist. Marcus was waiting with the car, his expression questioning. It's done, Adrian said simply. The commission accepted our terms. As they drove through Manhattan, rain beginning to fall against the windows, Lena finally let herself relax. They'd survived. Not just survived, they'd established themselves as a partnership, shown strength instead of weakness. You spoke out of turn, Adrian said quietly, but there was amusement in his voice. I specifically told you not to speak unless I gave permission. You also told me I was there as your equal. Equals don't ask permission. His laugh was genuine, transforming his face. You're going to be trouble, aren't you? Absolutely. Can you handle it? Adrian pulled her closer, kissing her temple. I'm looking forward to trying. 3 months later, Lena stood in the same conference room where it had all started, but everything had changed. The loose marble tile that had caused her fall had been replaced, along with most of the flooring. Adrian claimed it was routine maintenance, but Lena suspected he couldn't stand looking at the spot that had nearly given him a heart attack. She no longer worked as a secretary. Adrian had been insistent. If she was going to be part of his world, she needed a real role, something that used her intelligence instead of her organizational skills. Now she managed the Moretti Foundation, a charitable organization that Adrian had established to help families dealing with cancer treatment costs. It's selfish, he'd admitted when first proposing it. I'm using our story to launder my reputation, but it will help people who need it, so maybe that matters more than my motivations. Lena had kissed him and accepted. Because he was right. Intentions mattered less than impact. Her mother had improved dramatically under Dr. Rashid's care. The new treatment protocol was working, buying them time that had seemed impossible 3 months ago. Margaret had even started talking about traveling again, about seeing places she'd always dreamed of visiting. Your crime lord is good for something, she'd told Lena with a wry smile. Even if he does terrify me. Elena had become an unexpected friend, teaching Lena self-defense and sharing stories about the security work that made Lena both laugh and cringe. Marcus remained protective, but warmer, occasionally even joking with her when Adrian wasn't around. And Adrian himself had slowly, carefully, started to let more of his humanity show. He still ran a criminal empire with ruthless efficiency. Still made decisions that Lena sometimes struggled to accept. But he also cooked her dinner, read poetry aloud in Italian, and held her while she cried about the mother she was still going to lose someday. Now standing in that conference room with the Manhattan skyline stretching behind her, Lena watched Adrian dismiss his inner circle after a strategy meeting. When the last person left, he turned to her with that slight smile that was hers alone. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified," Lena admitted. Because Adrian had asked her here for a reason. He'd been mysterious about it all day, insisting she clear her schedule for this evening. He crossed to where she stood by the windows, taking her hands in his. The scars on his knuckles had healed, but new ones had appeared, reminders that his world would always carry violence. 3 months ago, Adrian said quietly, you fell into my lap and changed everything. You made me believe that someone like me could have something more than power and fear. You made me want to be better. Adrian, let me finish. His thumb traced her knuckles. I've spent weeks trying to find the right words, the perfect moment, but I realize there is no perfect moment with us. Our entire relationship has been chaos and danger and things happening too fast. So why should this be any different? He released one of her hands, reaching into his jacket pocket. When he pulled out a small velvet box, Lena's breath caught. I'm not a good man, Lena. I never will be. I'll always be the crime lord who kills his enemies and builds empires on questionable foundations. But with you, I'm also just Adrian, the man who loves you so completely that it terrifies him. He dropped to one knee, and Lena felt tears spill down her cheeks. Marry me, Adrian said, opening the box to reveal a diamond ring that caught the light like captured stars. Not because it's sensible or safe or what anyone expects. Marry me because what we have is worth fighting for. Because you're the first thing I think about in the morning and the last thing I want to see at night. Because I would burn down the world to keep you safe, and I want the legal right to call you mine. Lena laughed through her tears. That's possibly the most unromantic proposal I've ever heard. Is that a no? That's a, you forgot the actual question, you ridiculous man. Adrian's smile was blinding. Lena Carter, will you marry me and spend the rest of your life arguing with me, challenging me and making me human again? Yes, Lena said, pulling him to his feet. Yes to all of it. The arguing, the challenges, the humanity. Yes to you. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly because of course it did. Adrian paid attention to everything about her. Then he kissed her, soft and reverent, like she was the most precious thing in his dangerous world. When they finally broke apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said. I should have said that first, before the proposal, but I'm not good at this. You're learning. Lena wrapped her arms around his neck. And for the record, I love you too, even though you're a crime lord and you make terrible decisions and you're far too protective. Especially because of those things? Despite them. Because of them. Both. She kissed him again. We're a disaster, Adrian Moretti. The best kind of disaster. His hand settled on her waist, that possessive gesture that had become their signature. My beautiful, brilliant disaster. They stood there in the conference room where it had all started, holding each other as Manhattan's lights began to twinkle in the growing darkness. Outside, Adrian's empire continued its operations. Inside this room, two people who shouldn't have worked had found something worth building a future on. 1 year later, Lena Moretti, she'd taken his name, found she liked the weight of it, stood on a different balcony, watching the sun rise over the East River. Her mother sat in a comfortable chair nearby, thinner but alive, having surpassed every doctor's prediction about her timeline. "Thinking about him?" Margaret asked, her voice still carrying that knowing tone despite her illness. "Always." Lena touched the slight swell of her stomach, still barely visible under her loose sweater. "Wondering if he'll be a good father. He'll be terrifying and overprotective and probably traumatize at least one of our child's teachers." "Probably," Lena agreed, smiling. Adrian had been overjoyed about the pregnancy, then immediately panicked, then started planning security protocols for a baby who wouldn't arrive for 6 more months. Lena had watched him spiral with affectionate amusement, finally sitting him down and reminding him that love mattered more than protection. Although protection helps, she'd amended, because she wasn't naive about the world they lived in. The foundation was thriving, helping hundreds of families access cancer treatment they couldn't otherwise afford. Adrian had also quietly started funding after-school programs in Brooklyn, art initiatives for underprivileged kids, scholarships for students who reminded him of the young man he'd been before violence became his answer to everything. "You're changing him," Vincent had observed during a recent family dinner, making him remember that power can build instead of just destroy. "He's changing himself," Lena had corrected. "I'm just giving him a reason to try." Now, feeling her mother's eyes on her, Lena turned from the sunrise. "Do you regret it?" Margaret asked. "The risk you took? Choosing him despite everything?" Lena thought about that afternoon when she'd slipped on a loose tile and fallen into Adrian Moretti's lap. How terrified she'd been. How certain she was that her life was over. She'd been right in a way. That Lana, the invisible secretary, the woman drowning in responsibility and fear, had died that day. But a different Lena had been born. One who knew her own strength, who could stand before the most dangerous men in New York and refuse to flinch. Who could love a complicated, violent man and still maintain her own identity? "No regrets," Lena said firmly. "Not a single one." Even knowing the danger, the complications? Especially because of them. Lena moved to sit beside her mother, taking her hand. "You told me life was too short to miss out on something real. You were right. Adrian is the realest thing I've ever had." Margaret squeezed her daughter's fingers. "Then I'm proud of you, baby girl, for being brave enough to fall and strong enough to stay." The apartment door opened and Adrian walked in, still wearing yesterday's clothes, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. He'd been handling a situation. Lena had learned not to ask for details unless he volunteered them. But when he saw her on the balcony, everything else fell away. His expression softened and he crossed to her immediately, kneeling beside her chair. "You're okay?" he asked, his hand going automatically to her stomach. "We're fine. The baby's fine. Stop panicking." "I'm not panicking. I'm being appropriately concerned." "You're panicking," Margaret said with amusement. "Lena, your husband is panicking." Adrian shot Margaret a look that probably terrified crime bosses, but only made her laugh. He'd learned quickly that Lena's mother was immune to intimidation. "How did it go?" Lena asked, running her fingers through his hair. "It's handled. The Russo situation is resolved, no one died, and we maintained the peace." He leaned into her touch. "Can we go inside? I need to shower and sleep for approximately 16 hours. You need to eat first." "Lena? Don't argue with me, Moretti. I'm growing your child. That gives me authority." His laugh was tired but genuine. "Yes, ma'am." They helped Margaret back inside. She was strong enough now to walk short distances, another miracle of Adrian's resources and Dr. Rashid's expertise. While Adrian showered, Lena made breakfast, comfortable in the domestic routine they'd built together. When he emerged, clean and wearing soft clothes instead of his usual armor of expensive suits, he wrapped his arms around her from behind as she stood at the stove. "I love you," he murmured against her neck. "In case I haven't said it enough today. You haven't said it at all today. You just got home. Then I love you, desperately, completely, in a way that still terrifies me sometimes." Lena turned in his arms, reaching up to cup his face. The scars were still there, new ones joining old ones, a map of violence that would never completely fade. But underneath them was the man who read her poetry, who held her during nightmares, who was learning to be a father despite having no good example to follow. "I love you too," she said. "My dangerous, ridiculous, wonderful husband." "Husband," Adrian repeated, like he was still getting used to the word. "I like how that sounds." "Good, because you're stuck with it." They ate breakfast together, the three of them, Adrian, Lena, and Margaret. Just a family, sharing a meal, pretending for a few hours that they were normal people instead of a crime lord, his pregnant wife, and a woman who'd cheated death through sheer stubbornness. Later, after Margaret had gone to rest and Lena had convinced Adrian to actually sleep instead of working, they lay tangled together in their bed. The morning sun streamed through the windows, painting everything gold. "Do you ever think about that day?" Lena asked softly. "When I fell into your lap?" "Every single day." Adrian's hand traced lazy patterns on her hip. "Best accident that ever happened to me." "It wasn't an accident." He pulled back to look at her. "What?" "The tile. It was loose, but I could have avoided it. I saw it shift under my foot." Lena's smile was slightly mischievous. "I could have caught myself. Should have, really. But in that split second, some part of me thought, what's the worst that could happen? And just let go." Adrian stared at her, surprise giving way to delighted disbelief. "You're telling me you fell on purpose?" "Not consciously, but maybe subconsciously. Some part of me that was tired of being invisible wanted to be seen. And there you were, the most dangerous man in the room, and I just—" She shrugged. "Fell. You're insane." "Probably. But it worked out pretty well." Adrian laughed, the sound rich and free. Then he rolled them, pinning her beneath him, careful of her stomach. "You're the most reckless, stubborn, amazing woman I've ever met. And you love me for it, desperately." He kissed her softly. "Thank you for falling, Lena, for being brave enough or crazy enough to land in my lap and refuse to leave. Thank you for catching me." Her fingers traced the scar through his eyebrow, and for holding on. Outside, New York continued its endless rhythm. Somewhere in the city, Adrian's empire operated, deals were made, territories were maintained. But here, in this moment, they were just Adrian and Lena. Two people who'd found each other in the chaos and built something worth keeping. The baby kicked for the first time 3 weeks later, during a foundation gala. Lena grabbed Adrian's hand, pressing it to her stomach, and watched his face transform with wonder. For just a moment, the dangerous crime lord disappeared, replaced by a man feeling his child move for the first time. "That's our baby," he whispered, awe evident in his voice. "That's our future," Lena corrected. "Everything we're building, everything we're becoming." Adrian pulled her close, and Lena rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Around them, the gala continued, wealthy donors mingling with the city's elite, all of them contributing to the foundation that was changing lives. Margaret sat at a nearby table, talking animatedly with Dr. Rashid about a trip to Italy they were planning. Elena stood near the exit, alert as always, but smiling at something Marcus had said. Vincent held court with several politicians, building the connections that kept their world stable. It was beautiful and complicated and built on foundations that would never be completely clean. But it was theirs. "What are you thinking?" Adrian asked, feeling her sigh against him. "That I'm glad I fell," Lena said honestly. "That every terrifying, reckless choice I made led me here. To you, to us, to this life we're building. Even knowing the cost, the danger that will always be there. Especially knowing it." She looked up at him, this man who had shown her that love could be fierce and protective and transformative all at once. "Because some things are worth fighting for, Adrian. And you, us, this is worth everything." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And in that moment, surrounded by the life they'd built from chaos and choice, Lena Carter Moretti knew she'd made the right decision. She hadn't just fallen into Adrian's lap that afternoon in the conference room. She'd fallen into a future neither of them had planned, but both had chosen to fight for. A future built on trust and transformation, on love strong enough to survive the darkness. And as she felt her baby move again, felt Adrian's hand tighten protectively on her stomach, Lena smiled. This was just the beginning of their story. The best was yet to come.